The title is no exaggeration. This is what Civil War legends like Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, and William T. Sherman truly thought about their greatest rivals and even their allies. Grant didn't fear Lee as much as Johnston. Lee thought Forrest was the most remarkable. These weren't just battlefield foes. They were critics, fans, and sometimes harsh truth-tellers. But what shaped their opinions? Bravery? Tactics? Reputation? Stick around. The answers will change how you see them forever. The Civil War wasn't just fought with bullets and bayonets. It was waged in the minds of men who commanded armies, shaped nations, and judged one another in silence. To the world, they were heroes, villains, legends. But behind closed doors, their private opinions tell a different story. What did Ulysses S. Grant really think of the sainted Robert E. Lee? You may have heard that Lee was a flawless tactician. Grant disagreed vehemently. He questioned Lee's legacy and claimed Lee's victories were illusions propped up by myth, press, and sympathy. Today, we're digging up the private confessions, subtle slams, and buried respect these titans of war held for one another. And it's not what you were taught in school. Even amid the chaos of war and bitter rivalries, many Civil War generals held a deep respect for their opponents. In this Part 1 episode, we're how famous figures from the U.S. Civil War viewed each other. Share your thoughts on these commanders in the comments. Grant on Stonewall Jackson. From everything I've seen of Jackson's campaigns, I'm convinced that if he had attempted against Sheridan the same tactics he used successfully earlier, he would have been not only defeated but annihilated. Those bold raids might have worked against inexperienced troops and commanders early in the war, but not against disciplined forces under someone like Sheridan. Jackson's celebrated strategies were tailored to the early days of the war and those specific circumstances. Trying them against generals like Sherman, Thomas Sheridan, or myself would have led to disaster. Jackson's fame stems from victories won before he ever faced a truly great commander. Still, given his dedication and intelligence, he likely would have adapted. Unfortunately, he died before he had the chance. Grant on George McClellan. McClellan remains one of the war's enigmas. He had a way of convincing others of his immense potential, if only he got a fair chance. He was accomplished, well-read, and thoughtful. I've never studied his campaigns in depth to assess his military prowess, but my general impression is favorable. I trust his loyalty and patriotism completely, but the expectations placed on him were crushing. Being appointed a major general so early in the war was a colossal burden. Critics often ignore this harsh reality. He was young and tasked with leading in an unprecedented conflict, with a restless public and an impatient Congress. If McClellan had risen to the ranks like Sherman or myself, I believe he might have achieved just as much. Grant on Ambrose Burnside. General Burnside was widely liked and respected, but not suited to lead an entire army, something he himself acknowledged. He readily admitted his mistakes and was often overly lenient toward the failings of others. It's hardly his fault that he was given command at all. Grant on Gideon Pillow. I'm not saying Pillow would shoot himself, but I do believe that if he got a minor scratch, he'd probably report himself as wounded. Lee on Ulysses S. Grant. Where do we get enough men to face Grant? He brings reinforcements constantly. His strength lies in amassing overwhelming numbers. And let me be clear, if you ever speak disrespectfully of General Grant in my presence again, one of us will leave this university. Lee, to a faculty member at Washington College after a derogatory remark about Grant. Robert E. Lee on William T. Sherman. Sherman was the most successful Union officer in the war. The accusations of lawlessness by his troops in Georgia were greatly overstated. As a strategist, he showed military genius of the highest caliber. Lee on Stonewall Jackson. He has lost his left arm, but I have lost my right. Who can replace him? I do not know. May his spirit be felt far and wide. Sherman on Ulysses S. Grant. Grant stood by me when I was thought crazy, and I stood by him when he was accused of drunkenness. Now we stand by each other. I won't accept any position that competes with Grant. He's earned what he has. Sherman on Nathan Bedford Forrest. That devil Forrest must be hunted down, even if it costs 10,000 lives and bankrupts the Treasury. Still, I believe Forrest was the most remarkable man produced by either side during the Civil War. Grant on Abraham Lincoln. The president was one of the few who visited without trying to pry into my plans, though he was the only one with a right to ask. He was the greatest man I ever knew. The day he died was the darkest day of my life. Grant on Joseph Johnston. I think Johnston acted wisely. He conserved his forces and avoided decisive battles that could have led to total defeat. As Sherman advanced, his army became overextended, making it vulnerable to piecemeal destruction. I know Sherman, and I were relieved when Johnston was replaced. Grant on John Bell Hood. Hood was undeniably brave and not without ability, but his instinct was always to fight, regardless of the consequences of defeat. Grant on Nathan Bedford Forrest. Forrest had around 4,000 well-disciplined cavalrymen, highly effective under his leadership. While Smith's force was nearly double in number, it lacked the hardened experience of Forrest's troops. Battle-hardened troops who tasted victory are transformed in ways that can't be measured, sometimes meaning the difference between triumph and disaster. Much also depends on leadership, and for the kind of warfare Forrest specialized in, there was no better officer on either side. The Civil War was not just a clash of armies. It was a meeting of minds, strategies, and larger-than-life personalities. As we've seen, even amidst the bloodshed and division, many of these generals held surprising, even respectful opinions of one another. From Grant's measured critiques to Lee's quiet admiration, their reflections reveal a complex web of rivalries, grudging respect, and shared burdens that humanize the icons of this pivotal chapter in history. This journey through their private thoughts and public remarks reminds us that history is never black and white. It's shaded by perspective, shaped by experience, and made richer by the humanity behind the uniform. These insights aren't just fascinating, they're worth remembering, because they show us that even in war, understanding your opponent often meant respecting them. However, we will continue in part 2 of this video series, where we'll explore what the remaining Civil War heroes had to say about each other beyond the battlefield, through politics, diplomacy, and personal reflections. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know which general's opinion surprised you most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next part of this episode.